Oh, like straight out the box, mate.
Straight out of the box.
Out of the box, straight out of it. Straight out the box.
I do this for the family. I will sacrifice my life 1,000 times. I do it gladly to make sure that they're happy. I do this for the family. I will sacrifice my life 1,000 times. I do it gladly. You know I do it gladly. I do this for the family. I will sacrifice my life 1,000 times. I do it gladly to make sure that they're happy. I do this for the family.
Right, and we're back straight out the box. Sorry, back with another podcast. Basically, I've got a special guest in the building. And before we get into what I've brought my guest here to talk about, I would like to say to you guys, those of you that are joining us, if this is your first time watching my podcast, those of you who have been rocking with me ever since I started, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel, Straight Out the Box. I am your host, Tailz. Also, if you want to be part of a lovely setup like this, make sure you hit up Podcast Room SW on Instagram and podcast-room.com. But the information will be on the description, so don't quote me just in case, but I'm pretty sure it's podcast-room.com. Yeah, Jamie, make sure you correct me on that one if you get a chance. But today I've got a special guest in the building. Somebody that I've got brought onto by a good mutual friend of ours.
Yes.
So I would like to say big up Lisa. Thank you for this opportunity to link up with this brother here. Do you know what I'm saying? I've been, searching up and reading on some of the stuff that you've done.
Okay.
And it's interesting. Do you know what I mean? And I thought it was a great opportunity for myself, because obviously I'm somebody that's just caught onto you and wanted to understand your journey and everything and in its whole entirety. And it's also something that's informative that a lot of people should, take the time to listen to this journey, because I think it is a very interesting journey. And so without further ado, I would like to introduce to you my brother, Emeka. Is it Emeka or Emeka or Emeka?
Yeah, you got it right first time, Emeka, because a lot of people either say Emeka or Emeka,
right?
But it's Emeka.
And do you know what it is? The funny thing is that because, like, I'm assuming that you're from Nigeria.
Of course, yes.
Right. So, because I've got Nigerian friends, and I don't know whether they've just allowed me to say it that way, because I've heard some people say Emeka. And so because I've got a friend called Emeka, I think of it like, okay, is that the right way? Or you just allow me to say it because you're just so used to me saying it the way? And then when I'm around his family, it's Emeka.
Yeah.
So it's like, what is the actual correct way?
So if I'm saying it how, like in my village, how they would say it, Emeka.
Emeka.
Then
Okay.
they'll put the emphasis on the K. But, over the years, I've had so many different variations. But in terms of just the correct way of saying it's Emeka.
Emeka.
Yeah.
Okay. First and foremost, I would like to thank you for coming onto the show today. It's much appreciated. I know you've had the journey here, wasn't it?
We made it. We made it.
Well, we made it. That's the main thing. But first and foremost, thank you for coming through.
No, I appreciate it. Good to be here.
I want to dive straight in.
Okay.
So, including myself, but for the people out there, let them know who you are. Do you know what I'm saying? Where you're from, and also what is it that you do, and even like how we even came to get here today.
Okay. So like you said, my name is Emeka. I am where do I start? I am a teacher.
Right.
I'm an author. I'm a public speaker, father, and husband.
Right.
So all of those things sort of make up who I am in regards to what my journey is on a day-to-day basis, and each parts of that, has a story within itself.
Right.
But over the last 19 years this year, I've been working predominantly with young people in some capacity.
Okay.
I started off as a football coach once my career didn't look like it was going to manifest.
Yeah, no,
Do you know what I mean? And so I was coaching for a while, and then eventually ended up in youth work after university, my first time around at uni. So, and then eventually once I left youth work, I delved into teaching. So that's what I've been doing for a long period of time. And in the backdrop of all of this, writing has been a strong part of my life as well.
So I just want to touch on something, because you mentioned about the football coach and also doing youth work. What inspired you to do those sort of things and then go into teaching? That what inspired you? What drove your passion for it?
Growing up in Hackney, there was a lot of violence.
Right. Yep.
Where the community sort of eating at itself in terms of, I guess, young people at the time not really understanding the concept of togetherness.
Yeah.
Where our mothers and our fathers would probably be working hard at hospitals and schools and all of these places. They know each other, but then their children are on the streets sort of at each other's heads.
Right, yes.
So that lack of understanding of togetherness and going through different levels of trauma.
Right.
That we don't address.
Yes.
And one of the most important things that happens that we don't talk about often is that social exclusion that tends to happen, and it starts off in school,
right,
where a lot of young men are socially excluded from that environment. And then you continue to do that, you start creating an individual who has nothing to lose, and can eventually become a menace to society, which becomes society's problem rather than that school's problem, who just said, you know what, the easiest way to fix this is to just get rid of him. But you're creating something that's going to be a menace potentially to society if that person no longer feels included in this mainstream society that we have created. So being around that, I've always been the type of person that's been very, very analytical of my environment from a young age. Right. And I had a mentor in school who was very knowledgeable. We called him Mr. Richards. He always told me about books to read. And so
Big up Mr. Richards.
I'll never forget him. So I always shout him out anytime that I can. So with that mindset, I went to a school that was predominantly Bangladeshi Asians.
Okay.
And so in that school,
in Hackney?
No, in Bethnal Green, next door neighbours.
Tower Hamlets. Yeah.
So historically, there's been a racial clash there, and you sort of indoctrinated into it once you go into that environment. So for me, when I was involved in fights and altercations, there was always from a self-defense perspective in terms of looking after myself and my peoples. But then when I go back to Hackney, what I wouldn't engage in is fighting everybody else that looked like me. Right. Because I couldn't come from that. Defending that, you know what you're saying, and then switch it. It's like, you look like me, and so it didn't transport in my mindset, and so that's why I've never been involved in it. In essence, and it's always been, okay, how do we move forward from this? And then an opportunity for coaching football. I was 18 at the time. I was looking after the under-16s of a charity called Gems FC, and from there it was just more of, okay, let's use football as a tool to just start having conversations, and that's how I got into it, really. What I wanted to
ask, because I wanted to touch on, because you did touch on something that actually stuck out to me. Mentor, and you bigged up Mr. Richards, and I wanted your opinion on, in your opinion, is there a lack of mentorship in terms of guidance? And then also at the same time, how important was it for you at that precise time? And do you think we need more of the Mr. Richards stepping forward and taking on that mentorship role? Yes.
One of the key things is, like, we have a lot of young brothers who are in this, especially in education, behavioral mentors, and so they can connect with the young boys and the students. Like, regardless of what background they come from, there's an authority that especially young black men have in terms of gaining that respect from these young people. But with Mr. Richards, it was slightly different, because that's not what his primary role was. He wasn't just a mentor in the school. He ordained himself as a mentor for us. Right. And because he was in a position of power within the school. And he added this sort of mental thing and says, okay, I want to create this group where you guys come, we can talk about books that empower blacks. That only ran for 3 weeks before the school didn't want him to keep doing that. That's a whole different story within itself. But I think it's important, because I saw him as somebody who's in a position of power that looked like me, that was giving me knowledge that I can go back and dissect on.
Right.
And that's an important part of it, because essentially being in education, it's predominantly female orientated profession.
Yes.
Especially in primary school.
Oh, 100%.
And so seeing somebody that looked like me, who was in a position of power, that also wanted us to not get caught up within the stereotypes.
Yes.
And to understand how to play the game, especially when we're talking about exclusions.
Right.
I remember there was this particular incident where I wasn't even in school when this another altercation between both races happened, but because I've been influential in regards to, like I said, either self-defense or protecting friends and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
My name was brought into something that I wasn't even present when this happened.
Right.
So all of a sudden we're now talking about exclusion, but he became an advocate for me in regards to, you can't talk about getting him out of the school because he's an influential figure from a self-defense perspective.
Yeah.
And so when somebody can advocate for you like that, it's powerful, because if not, I could have been easily, moved out of the school for different reasons. And then that can now spiral, an uncertain future. Yeah. And I probably wouldn't be sitting here today having this conversation if my life went a different direction.
Way. And do you know, it's like, I don't want to jump ahead, but because you mentioned because we're speaking about the mentorship, a lot of these young kids, because is it safe to presume that you teach in a secondary school? Or is it
college?
College. Oh, okay. So even in college, or even like maybe, family or friends, there's a lot of sons, I'm gonna start with like boys that might not have that father role, or might not have that father figure to help navigate their way in life. And so a lot of the pressures that he's outside world pressures, he's taken on board himself. And having that lack of mentorship, sometimes they can navigate in a direction which is not conducive to them having a long lifespan. And so, because I read briefly into about your advocate for fatherhood, now I wanted to tie the fatherhood and the mentorship and try and find a correlation, because even though Mr. Richards was a mentor to some people, that would sound like that was a father figure in some respect. Now, going to fatherhood, because you wrote a book. It's called, is it Ikenna or Ikenna? Ikenna. And obviously that's your journey, and that's what we're talking about, fatherhood. And I want you to, let myself know and the public know, what inspired you to write that book, and what is it about fatherhood that you're so passionate about?
So it's something that I've been playing around with since I've been working with young people. Trying to gain an understanding of the male influence within the household. And so even before I started writing, it's just always been a point of interest to try and understand what is it around the lack of absent fathers. Is it by design? Because you read so many different things, you know what I mean? Especially we're always, even when from a young age, whenever we used to look at sort of black history, it was always from the American perspective and the narrative. So moving away from that, trying to say, okay, what were things like in the UK in terms of family structure and so on and so forth? Because for you to raise a family, the best outcome is always having two parents who are in conjunction with each other.
I agree.
Do you know what I mean? And so the second best thing is if the relationship doesn't work out, which sometimes it doesn't, through divorce, if you're married and if you break up, is can we still be conducive together? And even in being in a relationship together, can we still be in harmony together to raise a loving child? And not just being a father that's there for the weekend, for instance. Because parenthood is more than that. And then obviously people's circumstances doesn't allow that. And often you just have to pick up the child and you're just doing activities. And these are the things. But in terms of that influence that you need on a regular basis, is being able to build a relationship and a trust. And that goes back to what you was talking about in terms of the mentorship. Is in school, Mr. Richard had our ear because we had trust in him.
Right.
So it's hard for you if you walk to any teenager on the street now and you could be speaking the most wisest thing of who are you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
It's automatically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Who are you to tell me anything?
Exactly.
And so there has to be a barrier shift in regards to, okay, I need to break down the barriers to get to understand your mindset, where you are.
Yeah.
And even when I say all of these things to you, there's no guarantee that you're going to take it on board, because everything is seasonal and everybody has a point of realization.
Yeah.
And I always say that to young people. Everyone has a point of realization. You'd be lucky if you're still alive to get yours. Some people never get theirs because
that's true.
You know, through sickness or through some of the stupid things that happens on the streets, you just never get to that point. Yeah. Some people get it once they've been convicted for 25 to 30 years. It happens in there. You'd be lucky if you're outside and that point of realization happens where, what is this all for? Yeah. You know, the system, whatever you want to, if it's conspiracy theories, is against you, but you have to learn to play the game and you have to figure out, okay, how can I play a positive role within society? Yeah. And so once I started looking at that, and I needed to say, okay, for me, myself, I need to build those relationships with young people in order to get their ear and get their understanding. And from there, I can start planting seeds. My students know me as the farmer.
The farmer, okay.
Yeah, because it's all about, when we plant seeds, we don't see the harvest the next day. Yeah. We need to water it. We need to nurture it.
That's true. Yeah.
We need to put in the hard work. You know, some days it doesn't rain. Right. Do you know what I mean? Are you still going to be persistent? Are you going to be consistent? Yeah. And are you going to have faith that one day it will rain and the soil will eventually grow? Yeah. But if you stop doing what you're doing, then you might not see the benefits of all the hard work you've put in.
Is this something that it's taken you, that you felt like you naturally had within you in order to appeal to these kids? Or is this something that was learned over a period of time through trial and error for you to come to this place where, like you said, you've become the farmer now?
For me, it was taking up when I went to uni and I came back. Yeah. And I remember some of the young people in the youth club where we grew up, who were sort of 14, were now sort of 16, 17 when I came back. Yeah. And then Janet, who was the founder of the youth project, she says, "Oh, do you want to volunteer?" Right. And I was like, "Yeah, why not?" Yeah. So my first 2 weeks there, I'm just listening to the conversations that all these young people are having. Yeah. And it felt like a deja vu. Yeah. Not that I've been here before, but I've heard these conversations before with the people that I grew up with. Yeah. And where it led them, i.e. prison, i.e. death. Yeah. The same moves, the same thing. And in my head is like, when are we going to break this cycle? Yes. Because it was crazy to me. And so all of a sudden, because I studied computer science originally, so my idea was to go to the city and work and make money and stuff. Yeah. But the more I started volunteering, my eyes opened to the deep-rooted issues that we have within the community. And so all of a sudden, that computer science and that lifestyle didn't appeal to me anymore. Because I'm seeing my brothers and my younger sisters in these environments, and I'm like, I need to be part of breaking that negative cycle for the next generation, because I don't want in 10 years' time us to keep having the same conversations. And that's how it kicked off for me, really. And so I started immersed myself within the youth work, got my qualifications within that, started building those trusts with young people and having those important conversations.
Do you know, because you touched on listening to these similar conversations, I know for a lot of families, they're thinking, do you know what, London's too rough now, let's just pack up and go. But the issues are still occurring, like you said, like how we're going to break this negative cycles. Do you feel like, obviously everybody wants to live a happy life and a peaceful life, do you feel like just moving the whole family, the kids out of London is the easier option, and just say, do you know what? Or is it better as a community, all of us, to say, do you know what? No, let's actually attack this negative cycle and try and build within, as opposed to just fanning straight out of London or wherever rife area people live in?
I think it just depends on your individual circumstances as a parent. Yeah, because everything changes when you have children who are now entering this age of secondary school, because your influence sort of reduces once they start making their own friendship groups. Yeah. And you hope that the values, the lessons that you've taught them, eventually they will be in situations where you can't be there to say yes or no. Yeah. Your values and your teaching should now be, you know what, I can't do that, I'm going home. Yeah. And we can all hope that everything we've been teaching transpires that way. For so many parents, they can see that their children are heading down the wrong path.
Right.
So in terms of your choice, if I want to keep my child alive and I know that they're in too deep in this lifestyle, even if my son changes overnight or my daughter changes overnight, I don't know what damage you've already put into the world out there where the other side might still want you. So the most important thing is to preserve life. So for some parents, it'll be like, let's pack up and let's just
go.
leave. Holistically, I think the community, I think that's the biggest solution holistically in terms of we need to dissect and reflect on so many different parts of what's potentially causing this self-destruction. There are so many different external influences in terms of we like to play the blame game a lot in terms of looking outside.
Right.
And there are many different factors that are outside of our controls that's led us up until where we are right now. But I'm a firm believer is, okay, what's within our control that's not down to politicians, that's not down to the teachers, that's within our control that we can do today to start helping make a difference in the future. Because there's many organizations, there's many people who are doing things in silos, but collectively, what can we do to try and make sure that we are changing things for the better? And we have to have honest conversations about all aspects of our culture when it comes to music, fashion, whether we respect education, engineering, technology enough to elevate those things, or whether we care about having the latest nights and all of these type of things. Are we able to have? There's nothing wrong with having a good time, but if that's all we're good for and known for, then that's now another form of a problem that we have within our community. So we need to start thinking holistically. How do we change the landscape, and how do we make sure that our children are aspiring for more? Because sometimes it feels like the bar is set so low, and then when you achieve it, it's like, round of applause because you were able to cross a bar that was set so low for you. You want to set the bar high in regards to, yes, if you're good at and talented at music, by all means do that. If you can make people laugh and that's your talent, by all means do that. If you're good at engineering, let's get you to do that. Architecture, let's get you. There's many different ways we can have success. You might be good at cutting hair. We need those in our communities.
Yeah, of course.
Exactly.
No, of course.
So
of course.
these are the things, but we need to make sure that the community and these young people see value in everything that makes a community as well.
Pussies making drums in someone's making bombs in mind the propaganda, have you condemned shout out my true G's and my dons in couple pussies making drums in couple ackies gone mad making bombs in just mind the propaganda, have you condemned shout out my real G's and my dons. Wrote this song for the city, can't go on like the rain, nothing wrong with the city, but the love's there, feeling strong for the city, that's the reason why I wrote this whole song for the city.
Do you feel, and because it's just come to me, do you feel that social media makes it harder for a parent to parent?
Oh yeah, there's a lot, there's a level of influence because my daughter's 12 now, so I'm entering a whole different phase of parenthood. She's year 8, and you're now worried about influence, friendship groups. Daddy, can I go out? Who are the friends? I need to talk to the parents.
Exactly.
So,
of course.
So if me and the parents are in communication, then your friendship and all of these requests are more likely to happen. Because I can, have a conversation. I see what home they're coming from. Our values aligned. I know what type of child your friend is. All of those type of things that we used to take granted when our parents, when our parents used to do it. So, so from that perspective, it's like, okay, as a father now, social media has a strong influence. Because of, even for us as adults, having to navigate our time, screen time. How much am I seeing? I think 2021, I cut everything off because I felt like I was getting too much information.
Yeah.
The algorithm changes, and I'm like, I didn't ask for this. Okay, I stopped following that person or this because it doesn't interest me, and I'm following this, but this time this is pumping all of this information to me. So I thought I'm going to just detox. And I'm just going to just live, and I didn't miss it. Maybe I'm a natural introvert anyway, so that form of socialization was just something that I just did as a thing. But I can see fundamentally being in a classroom, having to say pretty much every so often, put your phone away.
Yeah.
Put your phones away.
Yeah.
Put your phones away. And it's like, it's an addiction. It's like, they're not even doing anything on it.
Yeah,
we're so used to just pulling it out and scrolling.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
And the influence of that in terms of in this society of influencers now, you just have to be careful. You just have to monitor what they're doing, ask questions and engage. You can't just leave them to it. You have to engage, you have to be there and question things and have conversations and, you know, challenge things, because your children, your teenagers could be going through things that you have no idea about.
And that's always been my thing, because on this handheld device, you've got access to so much information. And like, I don't have any kids, but I've got, you know, like little cousins and I've got loads of godkids. And sometimes I'll sit there and I'll watch them on their phones. And I'm thinking, you're working this technology a little bit better than me. But then I see how it become an addictive nature. It's like a drug now.
Yeah.
And now sometimes I see when, okay, he's not around mum, he's not around daddy. Let me see, what are you looking at? And knowing that these are like 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, and I'm thinking, to a lot of these, like when we was talking about gangs and doing stupid stuff, they've got access to all of this.
Yeah.
They've got access to all of these people glorifying all of these sort of bad things, do you know what I'm saying? Negative things that technically these kids should not be seeing. Yeah. But because this handheld device, everybody's got one now. Now it's like, okay, do you know what? This is going on. I listen to mum and dad, but this is what I'm invested in. And I don't see a lot of control over what these kids are watching on these handheld devices. And sometimes I think that's scary, because a lot of the time, like you said, you've got a 12-year-old daughter, she spends most of her time at school than she does at home. So sometimes as parents, you got to trust in, like you said, trust in your teaching that you've done enough in order for them to say, all right, cool, even what I'm watching, that's not for me. That's not something that I should be entertaining. But the only issue is that with this social media, there's a lot of brainwashing going on. And this is how a lot of the kids are becoming groomed. And this is why sometimes I worry for the kids that are stuck to their phone, because it's like, all right, this is gospel now. Some kids feel that they can act a certain way, act out a certain way. But then when you go home, mom and dad are none the wiser, because you're good when you're under mommy and daddy's rules. Yeah. But then when you're in the outside world, all of these things that you're seeing on social media is a whole completely...
Yeah. And it's trying to get them to understand that it's reality is not always that the perception of Instagram and all of these things is not always the reality. And at what stage do you introduce these things to them in the first place, in terms of, okay, all my friends have got it, you haven't got it, and then it's like, okay, how much do you want your child to not feel included in what's going on? But now they're included, you're now worried about the level of usage, how often they're using it, and so on and so forth. So it's that fine balance. It's not going anywhere. The technology is advancing every day. So it's just you getting them to understand you should be in control of this and not the other way around, and use it as a tool. So it's like with my daughter, okay, she can play her game with her friends. I haven't allowed her to be on all of the platforms. Okay, you can have TikTok, but okay, there's a parental control on there. You have screen time limits on there, and then if you hit your screen time limit, certain content you can't even access on there anyway, because daddy, I want to see this, or can I have extra time? I'm like, have you read today? Because reading is a big thing for us. So it's like there's things, and for me, it's not just about do as I say. I have to emulate the behaviors that I want her to do as well. So for instance, it's like, okay, we're switching everything off, and there's a period of we're just reading. There's nothing on. And we are reading, and we're going to have a conversation about something. Or she'll say, oh, daddy, what does this word mean? I'm like, okay, you know what? You can read and have your laptop with you. You don't need your phone with you, because I know you can easily get distracted. But you don't know what that word means, all right? Take a note of it and find out what it means. Don't just skip over it. And do you know what I mean? And so you're using technology to invoke and to enhance their learning at the same times, but it's being proactive. It's easier said than done. Because half of the time I come home, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, I'm tired. But it's finding the time to ask the question, how was your day beyond fine?
Yes. Tell me about your day.
What are the challenges in maths? What are the challenges in English? What can I help you with? All of these things. And so the more you do it, the more they realize, okay, daddy's involved on a regular basis, because I can only speak from a father's perspective, because, you know, statistically we are not engaged in our children's
Right.
education as much as the mothers, and so on and so forth. Statistics and a research showed us that children are more likely to read from learning from their mothers,
Right.
then their teachers,
Right.
and then fathers third.
Oh,
We
wow.
should be top two.
Two,
It should be
exactly,
mom,
yeah.
mom and dad, and
yeah,
the teachers
yeah.
secondary and third,
Yeah.
and from a third point. So that's it for me in terms of I'm not here to preach about fatherhood to anyone. It's just
Yeah.
more sharing my journey and seeing the flaws in some of the children that I'm teaching,
Yeah.
and seeing where things are going wrong in terms of how they are growing up, and just trying to just highlight some of my concerns. And obviously, if the shoe fits, you take the message and
Yes,
you do what you're doing
yes,
with it
yes,
from that
yes.
perspective. But for me, it's a learning journey. I'm surrounded by so many great fathers who've come before me,
Yeah.
and you're taking advice, but every child is unique. So you have to take from that,
Take from that, yeah,
take from
yeah.
that, and then you try and mold your child based on all of these values that you're trying to instill in them.
So you see, because before we get into your book, you said you teach in a college.
Yeah.
And so the college is like what, 16 to 18, isn't it?
Yeah, 16 to 19. It goes. It's an adult college as well. So it's but in terms of the core group that I teach are sort of 16 to 19-year-olds.
So with the 16 to 19, do you notice or that a lot of the kids are from sort of, would you say is broken home would be the right term of word, or like fatherless homes?
In my experience, there's been quite a lot of situations where a lot of the students have coming from a dysfunctional
That's correct. That's the word. I was looking
dysfunctional
for. Yeah.
household where they live with their mom or they live with their dads in worst case scenarios, foster care, and so on and so forth. So in my experience throughout education, there's been so many different young people who have come from sort of very deprived and dysfunctional family households. So it makes sitting down in a conventional education setting, which is,
because I've always wondered how is that for you, knowing that they're from different backgrounds and everyone's got a different story, and so you're trying to navigate a way to appeal to
everyone.
To everyone.
So this is the challenge, and this is where you have to become creative, and how much of a difference you want to make, and how much effort are you willing to put into making a difference to teach. Because yes, I have the academic subject that I need to teach, which is my priority. That's what I'm paid to do.
Right.
But I feel like my experience from youth work heavily influences how I do my job as a teacher, and how well I feel like I do my job as a teacher, because I rarely have behavioral issues within my classroom.
Oh, that's good.
Because for me, it's all about sort of building relationships with the students. It's that process of trust that I said that I said to you. It's like, okay, I understand where you're coming from, some of the challenges that you have to face. But again, once they understand that I'm here to help you. I'm not here to be your enemy. I'm not a teacher that's looking for the first opportunity to write an email to get you out. And once they see you for who you are, they open up.
Right.
And so with that, sometimes it's like I see a student who I know is going through stuff. It's like, no matter what I've planned today, none of this is going to be digesting today, because you are going through something that's more important than this learning objective for today. So it's seeing that and being adaptable to that, and not taking things personal. Somebody might snap at me about something. I might remind them about the rules and about boundaries and so on and so forth, but I know something has happened. So I don't need, my ego doesn't need to be put into play because you know, you've now said something or whatever. So but there's a respect there because we've built this relationship. And it's through that understanding that I can now help you and say, you know what, I understand things are not great today. All right, how about you know, sit at the back and just work on this. And when you feel like you want to participate within the group work, come back. And just give them that autonomy. Start treating them like adults and so on and so forth. But it's finding different ways to engage to make sure that, you know, they are ultimately ready for adulthood. And then obviously, along with getting their qualifications, which is also important, but being able to regulate their emotions and understand that life is not easy. And you have to be able to be adaptable to whatever life throws at you.
See, one thing that I commend and you said is noticing when, you know, a student might be off, or as a parent, noticing when your child or anyone's child might not be in the right headspace. Because it's hard for some people, because like you said, some days you might coming home from a long day's work and still trying to find a balance.
Yeah.
And I know I've noticed over a period of time that, you know, some parents, because we got working parents, some people work 2 jobs, some people work 3. So by the time they get home, they might do the minimum, but it's not enough to notice that, okay, my son or my daughter is, what's up with them?
Yeah.
And I don't see a lot of relationships where the children feel that they can confide in their father. And I'm talking from a father's perspective, especially when we was talking about weekend dads.
Yeah.
There's not enough time, which I feel, and I could be wrong, and some people might find that, you know what, the weekend thing is okay, that's the best that you can do. I'm not knocking anyone's situation, but when you're not around as much, I don't always see the bond as strong. So sometimes your kids might not come to you for the issues that they may be going through.
Yeah. And this is one of the things that I always say is even the ones that are in the same household as their children, I call it you're present but absent at the same time.
Right.
And that's equally as bad in essence than physically not being there, because you're not emotionally there and you're not spotting things. And often you may come across as a disciplinarian. I can't confide in.
Right.
It's finding that balance. It's not easy. And again, the personality of the child also comes into play. But for me, it's like understanding that there's boundaries, there's rules within the household, but at the same time, I want you to be able to come to me for issues. And so you have to ask yourself, okay, that's easier said than done. It's anyone can say, I want you to be able to come to me. But the question is, why? Should they come to you?
Yeah.
And if they do, how are you going to deal with this particular conversation? So my daughter this year started her menstrual cycle, started her periods. And so it's like, my thing was, I don't know if you ever watched My Wife and Kids. Michael Carroll. So I always thought that I really liked his relationship with his children. Right from a young age, because they could come to him. He had jokes with them. Obviously it's a sitcom, but he still had the boundaries and the rules in regards to how he managed those things, and
still yet very present.
Exactly. But most importantly, they can have conversations. Right. So I thought to myself, is like, I don't want to be one of those fathers that this becomes an awkward subject, that it's only you can only talk to it about with females, with your mum, do you know what I mean?
Yes.
I want you to be able to come to me and it's not going to be an issue. Yeah. And that's based on how weird I make it. Right. So when we're now having a conversation, it's like, okay, how have you managed your money this month? Have you made sure you saved enough money to get your pads when you need your pads? Because we're now getting to that level of responsibility if you take care of it. But in terms of there is no awkwardness, because I have said it upon myself that I'm not going to make this awkward for me, so you feel comfortable coming to
so you've bridged that gap basically
about this, regardless of what it is. That type of thing. Obviously there's intimate parts of it that naturally you're going to be more comfortable talking to a woman about, because I'm never going to experience it. But on the surface level, it's like, okay, you can come and talk to me about these things and any other issues that you may have. And you have to question, what kind of environments am I creating? And I have many years of experience doing this, from youth work to the teaching in my classroom. Is this a safe environment? Do I feel like my students can come and speak to me? And that's by humanizing yourself, and not uplifting yourself to a level of superiority than they are. So I'll be the first to say I'm sorry if I've made a mistake. Do you know what I mean? And so you might see a typo in the PowerPoint, and I'm not quickly trying to pretend that it's not there. I'm like, it's a mistake. It happens. It's being human and being relatable. And that's my thing. And I say to them, is like, I learn as much from you and vice versa. This is a learning environment for both of us, because I'm a lifelong learner. That's what I call myself. And I feel like they take that on board, and so they're not afraid to make mistakes. They're not afraid to ask questions, especially if they feel like they're going to get something wrong. And so I try to do that at home with my daughter as well.
And I want to segue into your book, and this is your fourth book. And just let the people know the title of that book.
So this book coming out is called Ikenna, and so that's a Igbo Nigerian name. And it means strength of a father.
Right. And what made you want to write this book, this particular book? What made you want to write in general, but what made you want to write this book as well?
Yes. Yeah. So my first book was in 2011. and that was written through tragedy,
Right.
in essence, because one of the young people I was working with,
Right.
rest in peace, Agnes, was shot and killed in Hackney at the time, and so we
My
were working
condolences.
on a workshop called Consequences.
Oh wow.
So when I took over managing this particular youth center, we had just open nights where people come and just socialize and play table tennis.
Yeah.
And you know how it is in a youth club.
Yeah.
So I took one of those nights away, and I thought, we're gonna have a discussion night.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk.
Right.
And everybody was worried that no one's going to turn up.
Yeah.
But we had more people coming to the talking sessions. Imagine it's just we call it a podcast now, but just imagine everyone had a mic, everyone could talk. I'm like, today we're talking about family structure. Today we're talking about stereotypes, prejudice, or whatever.
Yeah.
And she helped me set that up, and it's called Consequences. We called it Consequences Workshop, in terms of that ability to think about the consequences of any action, because it's cause and effect. Everything we do has an effect. So, and it became something. And when she passed, it's like I then decided to write through sort of friends who said, you know what, you should put pen to paper. And so those topics that we had in those workshops became chapters in the book.
Okay.
And my book was called Consequences: Breaking the Negative Cycle.
Right.
So that was my first writing project, and it was non-fiction. It was about real life stuff.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed that, and I wanted to write again. And I thought I needed to tell stories.
Yeah.
I was good at telling stories. I'm not a rapper. This is the era of grime.
Corners.
So I thought to myself, what can I do? My friends, I've made beats. People are comedians, but I'm good at writing, so I'm going to stick to my talents. And so when I decided this is the medium I'm going to use to share my message to the world, and then that's what led me to writing my second book, which is called Ambitions of the Deprived.
Right. Okay.
And in my third book, My Sister's Pain, and leading to this. But those two books had strong themes of fatherhood in them.
Right.
Sort of littered around the main plot of the stories. Whereas I knew with this particular book, I wanted to delve deeper into fatherhood and what it means to be a father. And so that became the core theme of this particular book. And so in 2020, at the start of the first lockdown, my daughter was born. My second daughter was born, and she was born premature.
Right. Yes, I wanted to talk about that.
So she was born at 26 weeks. And so during that process of entering fatherhood for the second time, but totally different ball game this time, being in a hospital surrounded by all of these machines on the regular basis, it was part of my motivation to say, okay, we need to get this book written now.
Right.
And so I pulled out the laptop after months of planning, and I started writing that book in hospital by her bedside.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And she's healthy now. She's okay.
Anyone that has a child that's premature that early knows the level of challenges. Yes, she was in hospital for about 6-7 months initially,
right.
But there's constant concerns in regards to anxieties that you face in regards to, is she going to develop in terms of physical, and is she going to catch up to other children who were born at full term? So a lot of the things, every child who's born early has different potential issues that may be wrong.
Yes. No, I do agree, because so I was born premature.
Okay.
My mum was, God rest her soul, she was always worried about me. She always had concerns, because every now and then I'll go back to the hospital. They would normally do my blood work, and because my immune system is pretty much low, I had to upkeep on my nutrition, everything like that. So I know some of the struggles. I know everyone's story is different in terms of level of premature and how premature you are. Do you know what I mean? So, but I've never understood it from a parent's point of view. Do you know what I'm saying? And that's why I wanted you to dive into that, and all these anxieties and these issues and constant worries that you may have. Do you know what I mean? I would want you to, describe that to the public, that to let them know what it's like from a father's point of view.
So it's once we eventually went home, which was 6 months of back and forth of oxygen and
Yeah.
procedures,
Yeah.
consultants calling you into a private room, and you're like, okay, what's today going to be? And
Yeah.
all of these things, and it's like, okay, when are we going to be able to take her home?
Right.
And so once we got home, it's like, okay, what does this look like now?
Right.
Because when you're a parent, it's like you have all of these milestones
Yeah.
for your child in regards to, okay, by this stage they should be able to do this, that by
Yeah.
this stage they should be able to do that.
Yeah.
But when you have a premature child, the calendar's all over
Over the place. Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
yeah,
depending
yeah,
on how
yeah,
long
yeah.
you've been in hospital. So she's
Yeah.
been in hospital 7 months, you know, not developing,
Right.
you know, just surviving at this point and trying to feel better
Right.
for us to start the journey of, okay, now she can sit up, now she can crawl.
Yeah.
You know, so just those little things
Yeah.
took so long for her to do.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and you're now starting to worry, okay, is she ever going to crawl, or is there
Yeah.
a problem? And you seek help, you know. So
Right.
we had physio to eventually help her crawl, to eventually help her walk,
Yeah.
these type of things. And once, okay, everything's okay from that perspective, cognitively, in regards to her reading and her functioning and her speech, you start
Yes.
to worry about, okay, how far behind is she?
Right.
Because
yeah. Yeah.
one of the things, okay, first her size, she's not the typical size of a, she's going to be 3
Right.
next month. And you start seeing, okay, what do 3-year-olds look like again? When
Yeah,
you see a
yeah,
3-year-old, it's like, whoa, okay,
Yeah.
she's pretty much, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
you start to remember, and then it's like, okay, what are they able to do?
Yeah.
You see, oh wow, they're so advanced,
Right.
because they're doing all of these things, but
Yeah.
we're still at this stage.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
knowing that and trying to talk yourself into, okay, their journey is different. She
Yeah.
had a different start to life.
Yes.
And saying all of these things to yourself in order to not get caught into that depressive state
Yeah.
of the unknown, but
Right.
rather than, you know, look at the cup as half full.
Yeah.
That, you know what, in your time,
Yeah.
we're here to support you. And that's
Yeah.
the mindset that we have in terms of trying to consistently support her. So we can't take our eye off the ball at all. So we have all of the educational toys. We have to have a timetable to invest, to say, okay, today we have to do reading with her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, she loves books. She will always, you know, if you tell her, if she's just sitting there, she'll just go and grab a book,
Yeah.
and she'll come and bring it to you to read to her.
Yeah.
That type
Oh
of
yeah,
thing.
that's good, man.
So it's like right from day one, we've encouraged reading. We're trying to get her to speak and doing all of these things. So at least we know for our part, we're going above and beyond.
Yeah,
to
you're
make
doing your
sure
most. Yeah.
that, okay, if they do say she is behind, it's not because we haven't done our part. It's just because, okay, these are circumstances out of our control.
And so because I saw the video, my baby was titled My Baby.
Yeah, so it's 26 weeks, my
26
baby and my book.
Right, and you put out part 1
Yeah.
on YouTube, guys. Go check that out. I will leave the link in the description. But yeah, I saw the part 1 and that was very intriguing to me, because obviously I'm not a father. Do you know what I mean? I plan to be.
Yes. Amen.
But thank you. But all of these worries that parents have, and even listening to you explain and thinking back to myself, this is what my mother went through. Like, this is what the constant worry.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? And I'm sure that this must affect your day to day, especially knowing that, you know, I'm having to go to work to pay these bills, and having to, you know, like you said, appeal to this classroom of maybe 20 to 30 students, having to notice, you know, if one student might not be with it today, or he's in a different headspace, and yet still think of your child back home constantly must have taken a toll on you.
Yeah, and it's finding a medium to help sort of take your mind off these things.
Yeah.
Because everyone has different coping mechanisms.
Yeah. What helped you?
Writing.
Okay.
It's a form of escapism in regards to when I'm creating these worlds and creating these characters and sort of delving deeper into it. So it's like I'm sitting here, so imagine all of these are intensive care unit machines, and on a consistent basis it's beeping, or the oxygen machine, or she's desaturating, or something happens. Yeah. But when I'm in the laptop, it's like I'm in the world, and all of a sudden I'm numb to all of these things.
Yeah.
Until I close the laptop again, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm here.
Yeah.
This is where we are. So it's for me, and the car. And the car,
yeah.
for many men that drive,
Yeah.
it's where we go to let loose.
Yeah. Yeah.
you go in there, you close the door, you scream, you cry, you do whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
You dust yourself off, and you go back inside.
You try again.
You try again.
Yeah.
And why do we do it in the car? Because we've been conditioned that way, because we're supposed to be strong, isn't it?
Yes.
And then my daughter says something to me. She looks at me sometimes. She goes, "Daddy, are you okay?" And I'll be like, yeah. And she's good at reading me now. And she's just good at, because I'm good at doing that.
Yeah,
she's doing it to me.
Yeah.
And then she would say, "Don't lie to me."
Oh wow.
She would say, don't lie to me. I need you to not absorb your feelings. I need you to just speak your feelings. I don't want you to be depressed. Just talk to me. This is a 12-year-old. And I start laughing.
Become the you, then you.
And I start laughing. I'm like, "Sam, I'm actually fine. But if I'm not fine, we can have a conversation. Don't worry. Don't worry."
Yeah.
She said, "Promise." And I was like, "Promise." But yeah, it's that default place to not want to break down, because you're supposed to be the strength of your family, and it's this idea of sort of patriarchy in terms of we're supposed to be this guardians and this protective beings. Yeah. But sometimes we need to also let loose and be emotional, and also say to ourselves that, you know what, I'm not good today.
Yeah. Yeah.
And letting that out in one way or the other. But then when we get back inside, we put on the face for the world. Yeah. Everyone says, "Well, how's it going?" No, can't complain.
Can't complain. You know the typical response. Yeah,
and that's how it goes. But for me, it's writing was a key factor to stay in.
Can you? And because I just want to stay on that point for a little bit, because you said about letting your emotions go, and as men, like you said, we're conditioned a certain way. How important is it for men in general, but fathers as well, to be able to express those emotions rather than bottling up, because we've been conditioned such a way? And sometimes it's not good for the mental, and sometimes it can steer us down a path of deep depression.
Yeah. And I guess it's down to each person and each person's personality, as well as the level of vulnerability you're willing to put out there. Yeah. Because sometimes when it's like everyone says it's okay to not be okay, it's okay to be vulnerable. Yeah. Cool. But then if you being vulnerable to somebody that you feel like you regret it as soon as you do it, is that adding more stress to your mental health? Yeah. Because you're now wondering, do I regret saying something to this person? Right. So again, it's understanding your circle, whether it's your spouse, your girlfriend, your friends, who you're comfortable speaking to. And ultimately, if you do speak, is it making a difference? Yes. Are you speaking for the sake of speaking? Because some people, they speak and it feels great, they've got it out of their chest, but for some people speak, it doesn't take away the day-to-day burden of that particular situation. So it's a tough one for each person, but this is just how we've been conditioned, and ultimately it's that attitude of nobody cares. Yeah. Deep down as men, that's what we think, is like, I'm going to say all of this stuff, but nobody cares, especially if you're now looking at my vulnerability and thinking, "Oh, this guy's weak, just man up and just get on with it." Right.
And that's constantly being said amongst us, like, man up, like,
just roll the punches. It is what it is. All of these type of things that we kind of sort of brush under the carpet, and so it's like, okay, cool, because of that I can't talk to the man then, because I'm supposed to be strong. Yeah. I don't know how much vulnerability I want to show to my missus. Right. And then you don't do it there. Yeah. And I think it's now becoming more acceptable in this sort of generation for a lot of people to now go and speak to a therapist. Yeah. Those are things, if you have the funds for it, because again, that's a level of residual income that you need. It's like, do I go and talk to somebody about these issues, or do I keep the lights on? Do you know what I mean? If you have to make a choice, then you're not even trying to look at that over there, so you're putting the lights on. So then those hidden things that have been repressed for many years, potentially from childhood or whatever it is, that could be the cause of these feelings, stay unchecked, isn't it? And so from that point of view, there is no one to talk to, and so we go to the car and we do what we need to do, and then we go back and we man up. And
obviously your daughter's home now, because you said you've got a 12-year-old. Is it a daughter or son?
All girls, 3 girls.
3 girls. Oh wow! How's it managing three girls? That must be.
Yeah. So yeah.
But more importantly, how was it explaining to the siblings, the condition of the youngest? How did they take it? How did they find it? Did they understand it? when they were told, or did it take a while for it to digest with them? What were the changes?
So she was 9 at the time when her sister was born.
Right.
So there's a huge gap between. So there's 12-year-old, there's a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old.
Right.
So the 2-year-old, the 3-year-old, sorry, who's the one that was premature, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the eldest, when she was born, it was again trying to explain everything to her.
Yeah.
You know, she had a decent level of understanding of these things at that age. So she knew that she was in hospital for a long period of time, and so she didn't get to see her sister for, I think, about 5 months.
Right.
So it's not until we got to a stage at 5 months in hospital.
That's a long time.
Yeah, that we were comfortable for her to see her because.
And this was during the lockdown?
First lockdown. Yeah.
Oh wow.
So for me, the lockdown was a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
Because I could just be in the hospital.
Just be there, be present.
Yeah, because you know, paternity leave is only 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah, for men, yeah.
Yeah. So with the lockdown, we were still teaching, but it was all
online.
All online.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I would literally go into the parents' room that was like this size, for instance.
Yeah.
I'll teach my lesson, and then I'll go back into the ICU.
Yeah.
And then I'll stay, with the family, and then when it's time to write, I'll write as well. So for me at that time, it was just good to be there rather than my college is all the way in East London. Yeah. And I live in South, so it's almost an hour and a half away. So it's like that journey of doing that every day with all of this happening would have been too much to handle.
Too much, yeah. So it was a blessing in disguise if you want to put it that
way. But COVID, go away.
Go away, yeah. We don't need you to come out. We don't need another lockdown. Do you know what I mean?
But yeah, at the time it made sense for what was happening to us at the time anyway.
So this book is predominantly your story. This is
no, it's not actually my story. So it's another fiction. It's another fiction book. So the main story of this is a father in his mid-30s,
right,
who hasn't been around his son, who's a teenager now,
right,
and he's trying to rebuild his relationship with his son.
Right.
His son now has to move in with him, but at the same time, that father has to rebuild his relationship with his father,
right,
who now has dementia. So he's on the way of losing his memory. So how do you repair something that's fractured? So there's this intertwined of story from all three characters, and it was a story that came to me that I wanted to tell. This is while we was in hospital. I knew that I just wanted to write a story about fatherhood.
Yeah.
And at the time, I didn't know what it was. But then once all this stuff started happening in the hospital, ideas and different things, and I started exploring it, and I was like, okay, this is it. This is where I want to go with it. In terms of my own personal story, I always feel like I'm still young. There's still many chapters that I need to live. One day I will write my own story in terms of everything that I've had to, autobiography, so to speak. But I don't think I'm there
yet.
Piss it and sip it with Bliss in the summer. Whisker, I'm really trying to get that beer come up. Fucking this whipping white, getting rid of beer butter. Latest black empress, you know you're Ella Turner. Her skin so smooth, I know she use that sheer butter. I'm trying to strip it down, give it beer rubber. Rub down, push it in, I guarantee you.
So guys, make sure I'll put the link in the description, because is it online?
Yeah, it'll be online. Yeah,
it'll be online. So I'll put the link in the description where you can purchase yourself a copy of this book. I can't wait for it to come out, because it'll be interesting to read. Do you know what I mean? Especially this story, because I've seen a lot of fathers that don't have great relationships with their fathers. And there's what's that saying is some people say like the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. But then I've seen in certain instances, because a lot of young men coming from fatherless homes, they do the opposite and want to be so very much present in their child's life. And then I've seen on the other side of the coin where the father has done exactly what their previous father has done. And so it's like, on one hand it's learnt behavior, and then on the other hand is going without, so I want to give them as much as I possibly can. Now, when we talk about fatherhood, what do you feel that as fathers we could be doing a lot more of, or what we could be doing less of?
I think one of the key things when I speak to fathers, and I keep doing my research, is presence. Not just physically present, but being emotionally present as well. Like we said, having that relationship that goes beyond that authoritarian relationship that previous generations have had with their fathers, in terms of dad is the disciplinarian, mum will say something like this, wait till your father comes home. That sort of level of fear and anxiety that builds in within a child, and it's like, that's the figure that controls the house. There's nothing I'm talking to you about. On a personal level. So I think, you know, this generation, we're trying to sort of break that cycle in regards to trying to connect more with our children, be involved in terms of not just in primary school, because I feel like a lot of parents are heavily involved in primary school, and then when they get to secondary school, the older they get, the more detached they become from their children's lives, because the friends become more influential. So it's like, no, not taking, you know, today was just good as an answer. Why was it good? Like we were saying earlier, and sort of dissecting a lot more. And then you're just creating experiences together. You know, creating experiences together, going to places, educational places, and you know, just having that experience that eventually one day when we're no longer here, that they have a rich experience and they have so much they can draw from in terms of memory. I remember that time with my dad. And that's the ultimate legacy, you know, having so much to say about what you were able to do with them, not what you did for them, because maybe you just had money, but you didn't have the most valuable aspect of it, which is the time. That is also very valuable.
And so and I definitely do agree with you, presence, because, and when we talk about, you know, like our previous fathers and everything like that, so like myself, I'm also from an African background. Now the teachings are a bit the teachings are a bit different to how now, and because some people say, well, if something's not broken, then don't try to fix it. But you know, the teachings, when you've got parents maybe from either, I don't know whether you're from the Caribbean or when you're from an African background. So for me, it was Uganda. So it was strict because they was born back home. Do you know what I'm saying? So knowing that they're born, what they know is what their environment
dictates to them.
Mm-hmm. So sometimes, like when they say, oh, you can't really beat your children anymore, and you know, because now we're in this society where it can cause more damage than good. Now, when you mentioned about, you know, trying to be present, when our parents are working, they're working maybe 1 job, 2 jobs, 3 jobs. So the level of presence wasn't there. For them, it was, I put clothes on your back, you've got a roof over your head.
The lights are on.
The lights are on. I'm doing my duty as a father. And well, interestingly enough, I saw one video before we got here where you was commenting on father scenes, and it was fences.
Oh, yes.
And Denzel Washington, when he said, I'll put the clothes on your back, Now, for some people, that is what a father does. But then in other instances, he just wanted to know that he was loved. And everything like that. So can you just briefly explain to me how much the other side, not just the I put clothes on your back to the X, Y, and Z, the other part is a lot more needed and plays a big role in creating that dialogue and that open dialogue between father and son, or father and daughter?
Yeah, because I think so, because when we look at what the evidence shows us in terms of so many different people who have their fathers around, but we're so distant. Because they were just the breadwinner. Essentially. Breadwinner, disciplinarian, and couldn't really connect to them. And then when you now delve into why was my father the way he was? And you have to look at his relationship with his parents. And like the more you go back, you start to see, okay, this explains his behavior. So there has to be a level of understanding, because I think we're all very emotional. And everybody feels hurt within themselves when things are not going right. And so it's like, again, that sort of blame culture, because you were this way. But if everybody sort of puts that away and say, let's just walk into the room from a healing perspective. And understand why did he behave the way he behaved?
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily justify it, but it gives us an understanding
Yeah.
of why he behaved that way. In terms of, you look at how he was treated as as a child, and so all he knew about parenthood, about being a father, was bringing out the broomstick and bringing out the belt, and all of these type of things. So we are now slightly further ahead within our thinking and our understanding.
Yeah.
And I say to myself, okay, I've already made a conscious decision that I'll never hit my daughters.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Why have I decided that? Because I believe that I can use my words to communicate effectively.
Yeah.
And even if worst case scenario, I'm not being listened to.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I want to now cause potential future trauma.
Yeah.
By using violence.
Yeah.
And becoming a hypocrite and contradicting her, and becoming a walking contradiction, because at some point you're now going to have to say the message, keep your hands to yourself. Outside in society, because you could get arrested.
Right.
But then how is that justified within this household in the context of, I'm trying to raise a child type of thing? So you're now breeding contempt.
Yeah.
And one of the things that a lot of people need to look into the mirror and understand is our parents who are struggling, all those adjectives that you just used to describe being a parent in those days. What does a bad day look like?
Right.
And then when you come home and then your child has forgotten to bring the meat out of the freezer when you call them to do that.
Yeah.
And the level of beating you might get is disproportionate to the crime that you've committed.
Exactly.
Like worst case, we'll go outside and buy a fresh chicken to make it's annoying, but it's fun. But in terms of the damage of the beating you're going to get for forgetting to take some, you know what I mean? Because that's the one thing that you can't quickly fix. You can forget to hoover the house. You hear your mum coming, you quickly you know, you can salvage that. But you can't salvage the frozen meat.
Yeah.
But what happens is a level of displacement that nobody talks about.
Yeah.
When people have bad days, because it's happened to me. I come home and I've had a bad day at work, and you can bring that energy through the front room.
Door.
And if you're the type that you can physically chastise your children, is that how can you control the boundaries of when this becomes abuse?
Yeah. Do you
know what I mean? Because I've seen firsthand some parents who've literally gone in, and I'm thinking that doesn't constitute the crime. Sometimes a child accidentally breaks a glass of water or whatever. They didn't do it on purpose. And it's like, and then the level of aggression. But ultimately, sometimes I don't even think it's the glass itself. It's the fact that whatever is going on in your life, that you're not discussing because you don't understand how to regulate those emotions is now being playing out in this particular form. Because I've had to check myself when I come home and I'm frustrated because something that I told you to do hasn't been done. And then I realize, okay, I'm about to go off, and I stop myself and I'm like, okay, I don't need to shout about this. This is not, it's just another reminder, and then just go and get it done. Because if I'm in a calm state and everything went well at work today, for instance, I might still respond in the same way. The answer is no. So then I don't need to do this.
That's true. That's true. Do you know what? I couldn't have put that better myself. Do you know what? I would have loved to keep talking to you. Obviously, sadly, this is all we got time for. But before we get out of there, just let them know where they can find you, all your social media platforms, where they can find you, also where they can buy the book. And if they want to check out all your other books, where they can get them from and everything like that.
Okay. So yeah, everyone online knows me as Stories by Emeka. So Emeka is Emeka. So storiesbyemeka.com, that's the website. So literally everything about me is on there. My bookstore is all on there as well. And my social handles are at Stories by Emeka on Instagram. Now TikTok, which is being managed by my younger brother because I can't get my head around.
Listen, I'm telling you, I struggle with TikTok. I don't know.
It's atrocious with all of these things. I'm so inconsistent with them. But if it wasn't the fact that I was a writer, I don't think I'll be on social media. If I'm telling you
this is it. Same for me. If I didn't do a podcast, I wouldn't be on social media. It's just, but thank you for coming once again. I definitely got to get you back up on here. Do you know what I'm saying? I've enjoyed the conversation, and I feel like that more of these conversations do need to be had. Do you know what I'm saying? Fatherhood, do you know what I mean? Becoming a father, you know, the pressures, because men go through a lot.
Yeah, man.
Men go through a lot. And that's not to say that women don't go through what they go through, but I think that, you know, as men, we need to be spoken of a lot more. Do you know what I'm saying? All of the different scenarios and things that we go through, you go through as a father. So thank you very much for coming through. I also want to big up Lisa.
Yes,
for bringing us together.
Yes.
So big shout out to Lisa. And as always, make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and we'll be back again. Take care.
Take care, people.